going on, everybody? It's Mike Taylor, Doctor of Physical Therapy and Coach with Gifted Performance. Today I want to make a little bit of a different video, a little bit longer, and I just kind of want to go over my own personal experience with injuries, because in addition to seeing people with pain all the time and helping them get out of pain and being able to do the things that they want to do, I also have dealt with an injury, or really injuries, in the past that have impacted my own ability to train. And the reason that I think it's important to share this is because I just kind of want y'all to know that when I'm talking with somebody who's going through it, I really do feel it because I've been there. So without further ado, I'll kind of just get right into it. So growing up, I was not really like a huge athlete. I ran cross country and swam in high school, but I didn't actually start resistance training at all until my senior year for swimming. Got like a little bit stronger, got a little bit better at swimming for that, which was good, but I didn't actually get into lifting weights properly until I got to college. Just kind of YOLO'd my way around the gym for a year, but then ultimately found myself joining the FSU powerlifting team because there was a meet that happened to be in Tallahassee. I was like, hey, I want to do that. Ended up competing, not really having any clue what I was doing, but thankfully the team kind of adopted me on the spot. Shout out to Dr. Zordos and Arian for looking out for me and kind of bringing me into the group there, because that's probably one of the best things that's ever happened to me was joining that crew, because not only did I get a lot stronger really quickly because the environment for training was awesome, but I met some of my very best friends and people that I still keep in touch with to this day. So it had a very, very profound impact on me and my overall progression. Now, overall, I got a lot stronger really quickly, but that did ultimately become my undoing. So kind of fast forward to 2012, and I was doing a max every day protocol. Overall, I wouldn't say that was the worst thing in the world to do, but the way that I went about it was just totally screwed up. So anyway, I got through about like 21 days, I think, maxing my back squat every single day, and I made a lot of progress. I went from squatting about like 445 or so to ultimately hitting 485, but my problem was that I kept thinking, okay, tomorrow is going to be the day that I squat 500. And I kept taking it and missing it and taking it and missing it until finally something in my low back / hip just was like, nope, we're done here. And, honestly, I don't really remember what side the injury was on. I don't remember if anything happened all at once or it kind of came on gradually. But the point was that it got to the point that it was unbearable for me to squat anything. So this was all kind of happening at the beginning of the year in 2012, and the whole rest of that year was pretty much shot from a training perspective due to this. So over the course of that year, I tried a bunch of different things, some with a little more success than others, but never really got all the way back until finally I just gave up training entirely for about a month the next year. So this was like Christmas 2013, or New Year's 2013 timeframe. And then I started kind of picking it back up gradually. And at that point, it finally started to get better. So this was like, a whole year of pain and problems that, ultimately, knowing what I know now, I probably could have dealt with within 6 weeks in hindsight. So huge waste of time. So, kind of backtracking here, I'm going to kind of break down the mistakes that I made, both preemptively and in the way that I responded, and then ultimately what did help in getting me back to lifting again. So the first mistake that I made was that I was training like a complete jackass. So I don't think there's anything wrong with the max every day protocol. I think it's a great way to actually peak if you're trying to hit a heavy max. However, I don't think it was probably the right thing for me to do as like a sub 500 squatter. I was very much like an advanced intermediate at that stage, and I could have definitely just benefited from a more gradual, progressive overload, essentially just more training, giving it more time. So I don't think I really needed to do that at the time. And then additionally, if I definitely would have auto-regulated better. Trying to go for a max every single day, that was really super maximal because it was more than I was capable of lifting at the time is a stupid idea. So, what would have been probably a better idea would have been taking more down days instead of trying to PR every single day. So that's why I think it's really, really, really important to auto-regulate and to train responsibly. I think if you can do those two things, you can do a good job of hedging your bets that you're going to be training safely and successfully with a acceptable risk for injury. After that, the other big mistake that I made was kind of refusing to accept the reality of the situation. I really figured in my mind this could have been due to a lack of education on my part. I figured this was something that I would be able to just like stretch or mobilize or lacrosse ball out and I'd be good. So I pretty much just tried doing a lot of that for probably the first month or two afterwards, and then get frustrated when I'm unable to squat the way that I want to. Some days would feel pretty good, so I'd say, okay, I'm obviously past this now, so let's go max out to see where I'm at, and then would be disappointed when I, get a little bit more than 50 or 60% and am then having pain. So really, it was a mistake for me to take so many quick fixes when really the simple solution was right in front of me the whole time, to just kind of gradually add weight and acceptable and tolerable exercises and ranges of motion. Because, I did, despite kind of going about it a little bit randomly, I did almost get it a couple of times. I did bench a lot during this time, so I didn't just stop training. I did stop training my lower body quite a bit. But I also found that I was able to do sumo deadlifts and front squats without pain. So I would do them, yes, but in my like lizard brain, basically accepted the idea that, because I can't back squat the way that I want to, I should really, really, really push the intensity and frequency of, the deadlift and the front squat to make up for it. And so really, I was applying the same training errors that I did before, just with new exercises. And so eventually even those became painful and I wasn't able to do them. So that was kind of a big mistake on my end, was still just kind of applying the same exact idiot mindset to a whole new set of what should be, good exercises. In hindsight, the best thing to have done would have been to recognize, hey, you can front squat a certain bit and, you can actually back squat up to about 50% without pain. Work within those ranges for right now and kind of try to build on it. And that is ultimately what I did, which we'll get to. But my outlook on it instead was, nope, go 100% all the time, always. And I kept ending up back at square one. Kind of in the same vein, another issue that I had was that I did a lot of research online about what to do. And, at that time, the internet was not overwhelmed with, PTs and rehab and like pain science and stuff like that. That was not something that you would just find. So, pretty much you had whatever was on T Nation and Mobility WOD, which, for some people is probably enough and maybe would have been good, but for me was insufficient. And so I, again, just kind of fed my idea that I just needed to stretch something out more, mobilize my hips, even though my hips were plenty mobile, and I would have no pain. So overall, I think that I was reluctant to find one source of information that was, accurate and kind of grounded in, the evidence, and kind of tried to reach out for the quick and simple solution that, I was sure was just eluding me. And, I never actually saw a physical therapist. I went to a chiropractor a few times, got my back popped, which felt, okay for a day, but never actually fixed the problem. So in hindsight, for me as a college student with minimal resources at the time, I still think it probably would have been worth my while to have gone to physical therapy for it. So I would have probably put my rehab in the hands of a professional earlier, and would generally recommend that most folks do that versus trying to handle it on their own. But then on the flip side of everything that I was doing, trying to make, very fast comebacks over and over and over again, the thing that finally kind of helped in a way, just because I think it got me away from those situations I kept putting myself in, was I literally just took like a month to 6 weeks off from training over the holidays. And you can always do something. Not exercising is not acceptable. But at the time, I think it actually was good, and, ultimately maybe the thing that I needed. Just a little bit of a break from the gym, a little bit of a break from the things that was causing me so much stress and frustration. Because I found that when I was able to come back, I was able to squat, I think like, 135 or so. I had no symptoms at all, felt fine. And at that moment I decided, okay, I'm just going to literally build on this every single workout. So twice a week I would squat and just kind of added between 10 to 20 pounds each time. And, over the course of 6 to 12-ish weeks or so, I ended up coming back and ultimately actually being stronger than I was before. Had I just committed to that in the first place, I probably would have saved about 10 months, maybe even a whole year of frustration. And, who knows how much stronger or further ahead I would be today. That being said, while it's easy to look back and say, oh man, you really goofed in the way that you did all that, Mike, I'm grateful for the experience because now I know. It's one of those things that until you've been there, I don't think you can really understand how frustrating it is. And that's important to remember when you're dealing with people who are experiencing that pain, experiencing those frustrations of not being able to do things they want to do. I wasn't able to basically hang out with my friends for that year. I wasn't able to be involved with the group the way that I wanted to be. So that kind of spoke to the social nature of pain and how when you're dealing with people like this, you're not just dealing with an injury, you're dealing with a person who has goals, desires, and relationships that they have to uphold. So I'm ultimately really, really grateful for the experience, even though it did suck at the time. Just kind of wrapping up everything in summary, I think the biggest takeaways here are, one, auto-regulate and learn how to train responsibly early on in your career. It doesn't mean you have to go by RPE, but you should be able to make informed decisions about how much weight you're putting on the bar. If you need to push a session off a day, just do it. In the grand scheme of things, it doesn't really matter that much. But as a kind of novice lifter, I think it's really easy to fall into the trap of thinking that you have to match the spreadsheet. So you should make the spreadsheet match you and not the other way around. The second thing that I think I did poorly was I didn't really place a good emphasis on continuing to train. I thought, okay, if I just stretch it out, mobilize it up, we'll be good. I'll voodoo floss my hip or something and we'll be okay. And then we'll just kind of keep on as normal. And what you got to do is you got to recognize that your training might not be normal. That volume block that you're in right now, you might have to scrap that in favor of something else. This kind of speaks to the idea of being comfortable with auto-regulating and getting the most out of every single day and kind of keeping progress in mind. Because if you let the fact that you can't just continue your arbitrary plan that you wrote 6 weeks ago for how you're feeling right now, then you're going to have a lot of trouble for reasons unrelated to injury in the future because things always come up. So I think kind of emphasizing ways to continue training without aggravating the symptoms. So maybe using the front squat, using the sumo deadlift earlier, but with a lower intensity, lower frequency would have been helpful for me. I also don't think that taking a month off from training is a good idea, so I wouldn't have done that either. And third, I think that the most important thing that I could have done differently probably would have been getting professional help with it earlier on. I tried to handle it myself for way too long and, it never really got better until I just kind of left it alone, let Mother Nature do her thing. So, at the time, I don't even know if there would have been, online, specialists who could kind of help me with that sort of thing. I don't know if I could have gone to a PT who would have really been sensitive to the fact that I was a barbell athlete. So in a lot of ways, maybe it's not something that would have really existed at that time, but especially kind of what we know now and sort of what's available out there today, definitely it's worth the time, it's worth the money to get somebody who knows what they're doing to kind of be objective with you and to help you make that plan. So really I shared all this just to kind of give you a little bit of background on me, tell you a little bit about some things that I've been through, and also just to kind of give you some perspective in general on lifting related injuries because they're gonna happen from time to time. So it's important that you have the tools in your toolkit to get over them effectively. And if you are having trouble with that, I happen to know a guy who could, maybe help you out a little bit. I don't know. It's me. I'm the guy. It's me. Look out for the post on Instagram that kind of summarizes all this, and let me know if you got questions about anything. I'd be happy to go over it in more detail. So thanks for watching, everybody, and as always, stay gifted.